very good morning to all. I hope I'm audible and partially visible as well. I'm Tanima Nigam, Editorial Coordinator, m.i.l.a.p University Press or m.i.l.a.p Universal Press, and presently, as my good fortune would have it, a proud curator of an exceptional fest, m.i.l.a.p. On behalf of m.i.l.a.p Academy of Higher Education and Team m.i.l.a.p, I warmly welcome you all to the third edition of m.i.l.a.p International Literature and Arts Platform. Ms. Priya Pujari, Faculty Associate, m.i.l.a.p Center for European Studies, and I would be gladly hosting you for 2 days of this literary fest. It's going to be a wonderfully inspirational weekend, and we're delighted to share it with you. Before we begin, I'll quickly make a few important announcements. As most of you know, we have gone digital with our theme this time, but I request you all to please keep your phone on silent mode while you're in the hall. Also, we are strictly trying to be a plastic-free zone, and we request your cooperation as we make some environment-friendly arrangements. To mark this occasion, I would humbly request Mr. Mahesh Dattani, Professor Dr. H. Vinod Bhatt, Professor N. Manu Chakravarti, and Dr. Kamlakar Bhatt, accompanied by Professor Neeta Inamdar, to please take their seat on stage. 2 years ago, on a fine September morning, m.i.l.a.p began as a literary venture, bringing together a diverse mix of writers, artists, performers to engage in a thoughtful cross-cultural dialogue while also encouraging fresh talent, honoring the legends, designed as a complete amusement for the lovers of literature and admirers of art. Since then, m.i.l.a.p has been a part and parcel of m.i.l.a.p University's endeavors to celebrate creativity in all its forms. This time, the theme of m.i.l.a.p, as most of you know, Creative Expressions in the Digital World, is an attempt to address the novel concept of digital creativity, the juncture where creative arts and digital technologies intersect, and the manner in which this confluence modifies, reshapes, and transforms our culture. To mark this occasion, the renowned writer, director, and playwright, and our esteemed guest, Mr. Mahesh Dattani, has kindly consented to join us as our keynote speaker. Often described as a playwright who gives 60 million English-speaking Indians an identity, he is also the first Indian playwright writing in English to be awarded the Sahitya Akademi Award in 1998. We are very pleased to have you, sir. At this moment, we are also honored by the gracious presence of Professor Dr. H. Vinod Bhatt, Vice Chancellor, MAHE. Being a doctor by specialization, a researcher by nature, he is a key facilitator of MAHE's global visibility. He effectuated the setup of Office of International Programs, m.i.l.a.p Center for European Studies, and Directorate of Research, and to add on to this, the m.i.l.a.p Universal Press as well. Actively involved in visions and dimensions of m.i.l.a.p, he has always been supportive of the efforts of m.i.l.a.p team. He's also, for those of you who would like to know, a philatelist and numismatist by interest. Thank you for joining us, sir. It is a pleasure to welcome you. And now for those who are curious to know this puzzling activity on stage, I'll share a few hints about this personality who's busy making something on stage. So he's Mahesh m.i.l.a.p, presently pursuing his master's as a student of Department of Commerce, MAHE. He's among the few people or artists on this globe who have excelled in this art called pixel art. Pixel art is a unique form of painting where pictures are constructed out of small colored squared units. We'll hear a little bit more about him, perhaps later. I now move on to introduce the convener of m.i.l.a.p, Professor Dr. Neeta Inamdar, Head, m.i.l.a.p Center for European Studies, since its inception in 2009. She's credited with making it what it is today, Jean Monnet Center of Excellence, a vision realized within a decade. Today, she holds the Jean Monnet Chair in recognition of her building MCS as the only center in India which offers Masters in European Studies. She's also the highly admired Chief Editor of m.u.p, and of course, convener of m.i.l.a.p. I would now request Neeta ma'am to share a few words of warm welcome. Please come, ma'am.
A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for being with us this morning. I extend A very warm welcome to each one of you present here. I thought I should say that before I get into something that I wish to share today in next 6 to 7 minutes, my experiences and my journey into music and also its digitization. I was probably 10 years old when I was introduced to Tanpura and was taught how to hold it, play it, and also tune it. Maybe I was 12. By the time I was 12, I think I was able to fine-tune my Tanpura, though it was much taller than me at that time. And my Guruji, my music teacher, said, listen to Pancham, listen to Shadj carefully. And if you're really fine-tuned it so well, then you should be able to listen to Gandhar if you have the ear for it. Then you know it is fine-tuned, and then you go ahead and begin. So at any time I was able to find it, I had this feeling of elation, of having achieved perfection, and it was so soothing and pristine as I proceeded with it. I failed to explain that feeling, that moment, and at that point in time, world meant music to me, and music the world in itself. Though tuning a Tanpura took around 15 minutes of my 1-hour class, it was an enjoyable enterprise. And as I grew up and came to college, a group of friends who found me struggling for time for years gave me an electronic Tanpura, gifted me an electronic Tanpura. It was produced by this company called Radel Electronics at that time. Though it was very fine when it came to Riyaz, because I didn't have time to sit and tune your Tanpura. And I could keep it on my study table and keep singing as I got dressed up for the college. But I knew very well it was not to replace my Tanpura when it came to performances, but it was something just meant for a very quick, regular Riyaz. Then I got married and had a child to take care. And at that time, I would keep this electronic Tanpura on my kitchen platform and keep singing for myself as I cooked. Now, around 5-6 years ago, I was introduced to m.i.l.a.p Pro. It's by Apple. And in great sense of urgency, I bought an iPad mini only for music practice. I couldn't believe myself because the kind of quality that m.i.l.a.p Pro provided was something significantly different and better than what I used earlier as an electronic Tanpura. So much of advancement. And it had not just Tanpura, but it also had a tabla and then a swaramandal and all that I could ask for. Such a fantastic experience. I felt it was so good to have one and started practicing for some times. 3 years ago, we even recorded a song with this m.i.l.a.p Pro in MIC studio where I could sing with the tabla and tanpura on this, and nobody could recognize it was not an original tabla, but that one on m.i.l.a.p Pro. 3 years ago, I found a music teacher who lived in Pune and agreed to engage classes for me. And once a week though, but on Skype, my classes started. Here I was with a laptop connected to internet with Skype, and me having a headphone with a microphone so that my teacher could hear me properly, and my m.i.l.a.p Pro on my iPad switched on, connected to my Bose speaker for more clarity. And there was also this Skype call recorder on the laptop recording the entire class, which made it fantastic because I could listen to my classes again and again and learn. As if not enough, my teacher recorded bandishes on her phone and sent me through WhatsApp. What more convenience can we ask for? I felt fantastic for the first few days and felt technology is such a great enabler. And music was back in my life. And religiously, I transferred the fee to my teacher online. She was quite kind to me that way. But still, every time I did this, I thought of my childhood and my association with my teacher. How I would touch the feet of my teacher, seek his blessings, and this Marathi speaking teacher would say, Riyaz karatza bala. And it meant so much. We imitated him outside the class. And we kept telling each other, all co-students, Riyaz karatza bala. Hardly understanding what he meant. He meant, don't run after anything that music can give you, but just follow your heart. Just go with the music. And we would sit outside on the Guruji's houses, steps outside the Guruji's house, and how we asked him so many questions about different gaikis of different gharanas, different rags, different bandishes, and how patiently he explained all that to us. And anytime we had a music class, it meant around 3 hours or 4 hours sometimes, including the walk we had to Guruji's house. And all this was happening in person. I never thought earlier that this would mean a luxury later when we look back, that to have a teacher in person is a luxury. My online classes did not last long, as I started feeling wired and felt music wouldn't emerge out of me in that condition. Your laptop, your so many gadgets around you. I felt suffocated, and I gave up my classes after 8 to 10 months. Just as I was struggling between the past and the present of music, in front of me was my 17-year-old son who took to guitar. Today, at 20, he plays guitar and sings for himself and considers Arijit Singh as his guru, like many other youngsters of his age. And he says he's self-taught. I call it YouTube Gyan. And I fail to argue with this digital native in front of me. Learning online is a way of life for many youngsters today. But for me, it's still a matter of distance, something that troubles. Thankfully for me, my son and I, we sit together and listen to music, his music and my music, which are quite distinct. So when I speak of my experiences with music, I'm not arguing against technology or digitization that has invaded the world of music. I'm only placing before you my confusions related to it. As a digital immigrant, I fail to be at ease with the new technology, with the new world of art. Probably it's not just about the conflict between technology and art, but as much between tradition and modernity. And to an extent, probably, my memories and my moments today. I hope m.i.l.a.p 2019 emerges as a platform to bring together two generations, the digital natives and the digital immigrants, together and engage and share their engagements and experiences with the new technology. So on this occasion, with us we have Mahesh Dattani, who has dealt with such ideas in his movies. I didn't watch the movie because I was too scared that I would cry, particularly at Morning Raga. And I'm eager to listen to him and his views about his journey into technology and art. It's wonderful to have you with us, Maheshji. A very warm welcome to you on behalf of all of us. Dr. H. Vinod Bhatt, the Vice Chancellor of MAHE. We all know he's a voracious reader, a philatelist, a good listener of music, and an astute administrator. And he has introduced many new initiatives that have digitalized the learning space in MAHE. Lecture capture solution, virtual classrooms, e-learning, robotics lab, EPAD examination, research data management systems, and many others. I'm eagerly waiting to hear from him how he feels about digitization of the creative spaces. I know, sir, that you still read and prefer reading books in print and not in the electronic form. So I look forward to hear to him and welcome on behalf of all of us gathered here. So today we are also releasing 3 books all in print. And the authors and the editors of the two of them, Professor Manu Chakravarti and Professor Karunakar Bhatt, are with us. Welcome both of you for this special occasion. So in this edition of m.i.l.a.p, we have tried to put together people from varied fields, literature of course, music, theatre, visual arts, and others to explore and understand how digitization has redefined and reshaped the creative processes. We will discuss how the interactive and the immersive nature of this new world of arts has evolved and how it has changed the creation and consumption of art. I welcome once again each one of you present here. Have an engaging day ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Neeta ma'am, for sharing your dilemmas with us. Okay, now moving on, I would request our esteemed guest on stage to please step forward and help Mahesh Malpe complete that beautiful artwork. Let's have a huge round of applause for them, please. Yeah. So as we all witness, this time we have chosen to commence m.i.l.a.p in the loving memory of legendary playwright, director, and actor Girish Karnad. A testimony to the legendary artist and an exceptionally gifted playwright, Girish Karnad, we have also organized a special session to discuss and comment on his life and works, as well as pay a tribute to him and see his relevance in this era of digitization. Popularly known as the Renaissance Man, his writings have exemplified a fine blend of myth, folklore, and contemporary social structures. His journey his journey, as well as his writings, will be preserved and unraveled in conversation with Mr. Prakash Belwari, Amrit Gangar, and T.P. Ashoka, along with Dr. Kamalakar Bhatt in the session which follows hereafter. We now move on to another quintessential aspect of this day, which brings us to the three major publications of MUP that we are releasing as a part of this inaugural event. Manipal Universal Press, along with Team Mahe, proudly and gladly announces the release of three major publications, the first one being Culture and Creativity, Selected Writings of Professor N. Manu Chakravarti, authored by Professor N. Manu Chakravarti, a prominent culture critic known for his discourses on music, cinema, literature, and several aspects of culture and philosophy. He was a professor and head of the Department of English at NMKRV College for Women, Bengaluru. He has been teaching critical theory, film theory, and feminist theory for over decades. We will also hear his views during the panel on publishing in digital medium, confronting a new reality, which is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. This book illustrates the intellectual and ethical perspectives that shape his discussions on a wide range of issues. His perspectives on religions, secularism, tradition, and modernity. These discussions are also inspired from his fathers, Professor G.N. Chakravarti, and his teachers, Professor C.D. Narasimhaiah, Professor U.R. Ananthamurthy, and Professor B.D. Rao. This book is edited by Dr. Unni Krishnan, who is an associate professor and coordinator of the Center for Creative and Cultural Studies at Manipal. I request our chief guest, Professor Bhatt, to release this beautiful publication. Let's put our hands together for this publication, please. We We now move ahead with our second major publication, which is by our renowned H.S. Shiv Prakash, Professor H.S. Shiv Prakash, poet, playwright, and translator. This book brings together Professor Shiv Prakash's intervention in the realm of issues that are entwined with the continuities and discontinuities in the cultural negotiations in India. We have among us the renowned editor of this book, Professor Dr. Kamalakar Bhatt, who has kindly joined us for this occasion. He's an associate professor at the postgraduate department of English at Ahmednagar College, Ahmednagar, Maharashtra. He's a bilingual writer and a translator between Kannada, English, and Marathi. His publications include 3 award-winning collections of poems in Kannada. He has also translated into English the poetry of several contemporary Kannada poets, including S. Manjunath, Jayan Kaikani, Abdul Rashid, N.K. Hanmuttaya, and others. He has also translated a poetry of the iconic Marathi Dalit poet Namdev Dhasal and published a reader on him in Kannada. I request our keynote speaker, Mr. Mahesh Dattani, to unravel the hardcover and release this publication. Let's put our hands together for this book on aesthetics. Last but not the least, we move on to yet another exemplary publication. This book goes by the name Decolonial Existence and Urban Sensibility, a study on Mahesh L. Kunchwar. As the title suggests, this book is a collection on life and translated works of renowned Marathi playwright Mahesh L. Kunchwar. It is authored by Sayande. Let's please put our hands together for this publication, and please, I request Dr. Bhatt to release another publication. For those of you interested, there's a kiosk of M.u.p. with the new publications as well as the ongoing ones, as the new ones. This is placed in the bookstall area. Now we move on to another aspect of our inaugural ceremony, which we have waited for quite long. I now invite Professor Dr. Bhatt, popularly known as our VC sir, to share a few words on this era of digitization. Please put your hands together for him.
I think you've got the wrong person for this time's m.i.l.a.p. Because my views on the digital space in creativity is very well known, so I think, Neeta, you have got the wrong person. But having got me here, better listen to me for the next 5 or 10 minutes. These are my words, these are biased, these are one-sided, and they do not reflect anybody else's opinion. But this is what I think. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me invite you for this, what we thought was a new path-breaking thing for universities to have 3 years back when we decided that we have 3 days of festival, literary, cultural, musical, operatic, sometime during this year, this time of the year. And this is edition number 3, m.i.l.a.p 3.0, and I can see it evolving. The first year, I think we did a lot of things in too short a period. Last time, I think it looked a little crowded, so the advice was, let's stay focused on literature, and we can have some other festivals, some other time of the year, but spend quality time on literature. And I'm glad that Neeta has taken that cue, and here we are. Can we wish technology away? How I wish I could. I've still not bought a Kindle. I still can't read on anything other than the printed book. If you have to trace back the history of digitization of literature, you've got to go back to 1971 when Michael Hart tried this with Project Gutenberg. And today, I think there are more than 50,000 publicly available books in the archives, which are available free for readers in a simple Word format. I downloaded my first Gutenberg way back in 2000, and I have not gone beyond the first page. This was a book that I wanted to read so badly. This was a book I had read when I was, I think, 18 or 19 years, and I wanted to read it again. I couldn't get a copy. It was not available anywhere, out of print. None of my friends had a copy, so Gutenberg had it. So it was Somerset Maugham's The Magician. You could get a whole lot of his books, but not The Magician. I found it on Gutenberg. I wanted to read it, but I still could not go beyond page 1. Until, I think, Lata Jagtiani, she sent me a copy from her personal archive, said, I'm happy that somebody wants this book. I didn't want to take it and read. But I have not been able to read anything in a digital format. Am I dyslexic? Do I have a problem? Is there a compatibility issue between me and technology? These are some thoughts that keep coming back to me. While today's generation seems to have taken it up, children as young as 2 years, I've seen my grandson fiddling around with the mobile phone and doing all sorts of things which I wish I could do. But here we have, it's not just a generation gap, it's something else. So am I genetically defective? But for me, reading is a book in hand. A library is where there's a strong sense of smell as well. And sleeping is when I can feel the weight of my book on my chest as a last thought. And waking up in the middle of the night when I can switch on the light for about 15 to 20 minutes and read again. And that for me is reading. Anything else is not reading. A serious reader will have a few accessories by his side. A small notebook, a pencil to annotate, maybe a dictionary, maybe a few reference books, a few things by his side. I was told today you can get all these in your computer. So you have an online thesaurus. Reference books are there. You just a click away from a hyperlink. All those are still there, but still, for me, it is not reading. And to me, I feel it's a genetic problem, so I would blame my parents for this. So it is not acquired. My children, both my sons, they read, they're avid readers, but still the traditional book. I'm happy that there is no generation gap between us. And I was pleased to learn just this week that my grandson, who is now 7 years, has done away with the digital reading mechanism and is reading about a book a day, the real book. So I think this is genetic. Music can be digital. Music has been digital. There have been times, I think, when the industry itself went into a kind of a topsy-turvy world in terms of the business models, when there were infringements on copyrights, Napster was banned, downloads were not possible, and therefore you saw that kind of revolution to an acceptance now, where you can download anything, you can convert a YouTube video into an MP3 format and still listen to music. But technology and music space, I think, was compromised much before that. Gone are the days when 4 people in a band could create all the music, all the noise, or all the cacophony, which today one simple instrument can do. But that stage presence of those 4, back in the 1960s, they were called the garage rockets. So, and the kind of quality music that they played, with some slight touches of imperfection, which made them only humane, are missing. The synthesizer replaced so many other instruments all put together. So I felt that the digital space has to be looked at as something that is inevitable. It is there, it is to be accepted. Some people will find it difficult to adopt. And let there be enough space in this world for both kinds of people. If in earlier times it was a generation that separated a father and a son, today it's technology that separates generations. So you have a 22-year-old who's on Twitter, but a 17-year-old who's on Instagram. And that is a generation gap. So you have people who are separated by generations and technologies. So I do not see the future of technology in creativity and in what form and shape it will come. So unknowingly, perhaps you will find several other things creeping into the space, occupying it, and making us its slaves. So use technology, as Neeta said, as an enabler. Use technology as something that can facilitate. But don't let it replace the human angle to anything. So if it is to be a creative world, I think what is most important is the human touch. Whether it is writing, performance, music, there is a whole lot of human touch, emotion, sentiments attached, and that can never be replaced by technology. So these are my sentiments, and I hope that I would have said something which would have created a few provocations, at least let them be provocations in thoughts. Nobody needs to do what I do, but what I feel is that I'm not meant for technology in creative space. This is my view. So welcome to Ashok and Maitri. These are have been our stars of MUP. Ashok for his work. Maitri, I think you have been, you were shortlisted for the Lucian strike. So congratulations to you. It's our privilege from MUP for all the best to the participants, the delegates, and the students. Let these 2 days be enjoyable and refreshing.
Thank you so much, VC sir, for sharing your views. I mean, many of us can relate to it, that how palpable the experience of reading is. For me as well, writing has always been about pen and paper. Painting has been about art brush. So I hope many of us can relate to it. Now moving on, we would begin by going back to this wonderful piece of artwork that has been so nicely placed here. Pixel art is a unique form of painting where pictures are constructed out of small colored squared units. This particular art requires extreme level of patience and dedication. For the past 2 years, m.i.l.a.p is involved in this activity and has sketched on more than 50 artworks of this kind. He has updated his skills using cubes and has given more than 20 stage performances in and around the state. His art videos are constantly uploaded on YouTube channel named The Pixel Corner. Mahesh is also pursuing his master's in Department of Commerce. I now request Professor Dr. Vinod Bhatt to please present a memento, a token of our appreciation to Mr. Mahesh Malpe. Let's put our hands together for this beautiful artwork. Now, moving ahead, we come to yet another digital aspect of this m.i.l.a.p. The digital presence of m.i.l.a.p has been the continuous and combined efforts of a lot of team members, and one of them is Vaishnavi and her colleague Ankush. Ankush has not been able to join us today, but Vaishnavi is here. I now request Mr. Mahesh Dattani to present a memento, a token of our appreciation and gratitude to Vaishnavi. Let's put our hands together for her. Yes, she has constantly contributed to the development of app. Now, moving on to yet another aspect as we come towards the close of this ceremony, but yet we have yet to listen to the best views of Mr. Mahesh Dattani. So first I would request Professor Dr. Neeta Namdar to present a memento, a token of our gratitude to Dr. Bhatt. We now express a sincere gratitude towards Sir Mahesh Dattani. We also express our in-depth gratitude to Professor N. Manu Chakravarti for being with us here today and for sharing his views later in the book fair inauguration. We also express our gratitude to Dr. Kamalakar Bhatt for being here with us. We now come to this interesting aspect of this inaugural ceremony, which you've been waiting on for a very long time. I gladly invite Mahesh Dattani sir to share his views as a keynote speech. And as a hint, it's on human art and artificial intelligence, so let's look forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this honor. And like Tanima said, even I hate hiding behind this. So I'm just trying to figure out a way to show a little bit more of myself. Technology as a hindrance, and we see technology as a medium, right? And I must say I misunderstood the theme of the seminar when I prepared my talk, but in some way I think it's relevant. I'm going to speak about technology obviously as a medium because I don't see art and technology as different from one another. The marvels of technology have been discovered, invented, and made available to us even before recorded time. But at the same time, while the Homo sapien was inventing tools to hunt with or light fires, they developed a need to tell a story. Long before the artifice of speech existed. So let us imagine that the first story was told by our ancestors, some of our ancestors, who managed to escape from the clutches of a man-eating lion. The person needed to warn other people of the danger and so enacted the story of the lion, pointing in the direction where the beast was still looking for prey, miming its movements, and adding vocal sounds to describe this ferocious lion. The women instinctively gathered their children and held them tightly close to their bodies. In the telling of the story, the adrenaline that flowed in the listeners' bodies was a result of imagining the horror of being eaten up by this lion. What if that were me, or what if my child were to wander off close to the river where the lion was spotted? Now, a second group of people came by, and the original storytellers who had experienced the incident firsthand began to mime the story again. The second group reacted very much the same way the first group did. But what about the first group of listeners? Did they respond the same way? They'd heard the story once before. They were still aware of the potential danger, but they were now also aware that the lion was not in their midst. That the storytellers were recalling an incident. They still felt the fear of imminent danger, but they were now thinking of what to do to protect themselves. They gathered huge rocks and laid out palm fronds to prevent their children from wandering off in the direction of the river where the lion was spotted. They lit fires, maybe to protect themselves from the predator. They acted upon the story. A season later, more people came and the story was retold. The ones who had heard it earlier, the first group of listeners, were no longer interested or troubled by the story. They knew that time had passed and the lion had probably moved on since there were no casualties. But somewhere in their minds, the story lingered. The space beyond the river was always looked at with caution and suspicion. And then they began to use tools they used for hunting to carve out pictures of the lion. 1,000,000 years later, I'm telling you the same story, but your reaction is not similar to the ones the original story listeners had to the story. You're not jumping out of your seats in fear, nor are you concerned about a lion eating you up. Because you know there is no lion on campus. You also know there are CC cameras that would spot any predator lurking in the thickets, and you will be suitably warned. You have so many reasons to not respond to that story as a result of experience. We do not see the story as immediately relevant to us. We see the story as a precedent to intellectual discourse of dialectics on technology and art, because that is the context we've gathered together. That is the intention which brings us together over here. But what if we were to tweak that story a little? What if I say, a woman was nearly raped on campus last night. The man is still loose, lurking in the shadows. I saw him. He had a knife with him and he pushed her into the bushes and tried to rape her. I went to save her, but he slashed out at us and nearly cut our throats. We ran from there and came back to the guest house. How different is the story from the one about the lion in the jungle? It is the story of an urban jungle, one that we know too well. How different is the Me Too movement and its horrific tales of molestation to the one of the human-eating lion? It is the same story. It's a story told in order to survive. It's not the novelty of the story that makes it a compelling one, but the visceral involvement of the teller and the listener. It has to come from the belly of the teller and affect the belly of the listener. So in effect, all art is storytelling. Whether it is the magical charm of a Raja Ravi Varma painting of a woman holding a lamp, or Picasso's anti-war sentiment in Guernica, or an erotic sculpture at Khajuraho, they all tell a story that appeals to us for various reasons. No one can remain unmoved by these works of art if you truly receive them with openness, dropping all the pretensions and sophistry that exist around art. Various forms of art develop through technology and technology alone. In that sense, art and technology are kissing cousins. The word itself, technology, is derived from the Greek word techne, which means art and craft. It implies the purpose of technology was to give art, and therefore life, a form. The smelting and casting of metal and the creation of alloys some 5,000 years ago created the famous dancing girl in Mohenjo-daro. And what a tiny figurine tells, the proportions, the nudity, the stance, all tell us something about life in the Indus Valley. Around 3000 BC, probably around the same time or maybe earlier, potters realized that the lump of clay they molded could never get the rounded shape necessary to create the pot. A wheel was used, and the combination of circular motion of the wheel on which the lump of clay was placed and pressure from the hand that molded the clay gave us the fine pot as we know it today. Now, we don't know whether it was a potter who invented the wheel to create a work of utilitarian art, or the idea of the perfectly round pot came about because a wheel was made available. Art and technology, chicken and egg. In more modern times, European painters for a long time were painting portraits and still life in their studios because the pots of paints could not be moved about easily until the invention of the tube. Suddenly they found they could be more mobile with their tubes of paints, and so started to paint landscapes, and they could easily move their equipment outdoors. Closer home, at the start of the 20th century, the Gramophone and Typewriter Company, later known as HMV, sent one of their technicians to India to record Indian songs and music. The technician approached many of the famous ustads and pandits if they would mind lending their voice for recording. At that time, nobody in India and very few people in the world had heard of this magical machine that could actually reproduce the human voice. The maestros all turned down this request. Some of them thought this was an insult to their art. This kind of technology would lead to artistic decadence for sure. And also there was a problem. The vinyl discs could only hold a recording for 3 minutes. This meant that famous compositions that played for hours will have to be reduced to a fraction of their original length. Not only is this an insult to their art, but a travesty that would bring about their downfall in times to come, or so they thought. But one talented tawaif, who was the superstar of her time, known for her innovative ways and mastery over her art, took this on as a challenge. She took her shortest pieces and culled the essence of the composition, excuse me, editing the lyrics and cutting short the expository alap. She recreated the Tumri. Her recordings were the rage all over the country. The company made huge profits and she became India's first international singing sensation. She has gone down in history for the form she gave to classical music, bringing in a whole genre of light music, light classical music, that could be heard in living rooms and in private chambers. Her name is Gauhar Jan. Even today, if you look at the average length of a Bollywood song, it is about 3 minutes. Clearly, this was a case of art reinventing itself to suit the available technology. Debates around art and technology have grown popular after information technology emerged in the 80s, of how technology prevents the expressiveness of art, that art is opposed to technology, or that technology brings about laziness in the artist. Some of these accusations may be perfectly valid. Computer technology, with its use of algorithms, has made many things possible, from pitch corrections to like Dr. Bhatt mentioned, synthesizers. Everyone bemoaned the death of orchestration. The machine was not just doing the physical work of humans now, but the mental work as well. So what's left for us to do? Of course, to learn about artificial intelligence, I had to get onto Google. Here's what it threw up. The term AI was coined in 1956. That came as news to me. But AI has become popular today thanks to increased data volumes, advanced algorithms, and improvements in computing power and storage. While Hollywood movies and science fiction novels depict AI as human-like robots that take over the world, the current evolution of technologies isn't that scary or quite as smart, but smart enough to generate works of art. Another interesting article that came up was how AI adapts through progressive learning algorithms to let the data do the programming. AI finds structure and regularities in data so that the algorithm acquires a skill. And what is art? Art is a skill. The algorithm becomes a classifier or a predictor. So just as the algorithm can teach itself how to play chess, it can theoretically teach itself musical skills, storytelling skills. This really got my attention, and it brought me to another article about how artificial intelligence given us the next great art movement. About a year ago, the auction house Christie decided to sell a work of AI art that sparked off a huge debate. It was actually a portrait of a European lord or someone, Edmond de Bellamy. And around the same time, new paintings by Vincent van Gogh were created. Not created, generated. Computers were fed all the information, and the results were so similar to Van Gogh's style, the strokes, the brush or knife strokes, the choice of colors, the subjects. It could fool any art historian who did not know about AI into thinking it was an original Van Gogh that was discovered in somebody's attic. If this is the direction we're going, will it soon be possible for that prehistoric story to be generated by a machine? After all, it does involve sentence structures. Well, now, the story was, of course, before speech. Plot developments, conclusions, all things that create predictable patterns and classifications, the basis of artificial intelligence. Providing a context to the story can also become classified data. Right? If we were to take that story, feed it into the machine and say, make it relevant for us today at m.i.l.a.p, right? They would find a context and create these given circumstances and generate a story that would be absolutely relevant to what we're doing. The machine learns more precisely than the human brain. Now, if you look at story and drama from a classical perspective, we have the famous quote, there is, of course, Aristotle's Poetics, and we have the Natya Shastra. The famous quote from Bharat Muni's Natya Shastra, something I learnt in my younger days as a dancer. And pardon my bad Sanskrit, it is almost as bad as my English. The quote is, Yato hasta tato drishti, yato drishti tata mana. Yato mana tata bhav, yato bhav tato ras. Now, by the very nature of storytelling in any form, dance, drama, literature, music, the purpose is to generate rasa, right? An essential state or sentiment, right, from the performance or the book to the audience or spectator or reader. 3D AI is already around the corner, right? So it is with the technology of 3D printers and things. So it is possible to feed the AI dancer these basic principles of dance, as stated by Bharat Muni. Where the hand goes, the eyes follow. Where the eyes go, the mind follows. Where the mind goes, the feelings follow. Where feelings go, rasa is evident, or rasa ensues. If we were to contextualize this principle with a prehistoric story, where we have the hand gesture of the teller pointing in the direction of the lion, the vision following, taking everyone's attention to that space, creating multiple transient feelings, the vyabhichari bhav of awe, heroism, excitement, using the angik abhinay to recreate the image of the beast. All this resulting in the sentiment of fear. Will AI generation be just as effective? Can it generate rasa? I'm not coming up with answers, I'm just asking questions. So where exactly are we in this new development? Personally, I think we're in a good place. And here's why I think so. And to understand any art movement, and I use the word art to be all-inclusive, one observes its phases. When I read about American art theorist Suzanne Langer's 3 stages of art movement, it changed the way I look at my writing process completely. It enhances my ability to get the best out of my actors as a director, and it changed my perspective on learning and life in general, made a huge impact. These stages are very simply put by Langer. According to her, every art movement is born, it lives, it dies, giving birth to a new movement which will live and eventually die, and so on and so on. Simple. She calls the first stage as the stage of naivety, where you don't know, where somebody has a bright idea, why not do it this way, or probably discovers something. So many of our precious moments in life are when we are in the state of naivety. Why is it that we remember so vividly our first love, not the second one or the third one? The first person we fell in love with. What about the first plane ride or the first experience of seeing snow falling? We don't know any better. We didn't know any better, and we had never had that experience before. Major art movements happened in the state of naivety. Somebody thought of dancing and jerking movements rather than fluid ones, and break dancing was born. Somebody thought of going beyond realistic events with a cause and effect pattern in a play, and absurd theater was formed. Shakespeare he decided to use a certain meter, the iambic pentameter, but then the words didn't fit in. So what did he think? He said, why not make up my own words? And so he did. He made up his own words. And today, we are blessed with so many rich idioms in the English language, which were actually coined by Shakespeare. Now, the second stage of art movement is sophistication. This is when you do have knowledge and you intend to pursue knowledge to know more and to achieve perfection and mastery. So in that sense, I guess almost all academia will fall into this second movement, which is of sophistication. Classical art forms, what we call canonical theories, came from a deep level of study, understanding, and knowledge. The naive breakaways were then given names. That's the second stage, where abstract expressionism or Dadaism or Art Deco or almost all our traditional dance forms came from a very sophisticated classical structure. The third stage, and it's one that I've learned to embrace as I grow older, and it's a stage which is not as negative as it sounds, is the stage of decadence. You know, when you have seen Krishna break pots for the 1,000th time, when you have seen boy meets girl, oh no, here's dad kind of stories for the nth time, or Hollywood white male heroes saving the world, and so on and so forth. And you know then that you're so tired of that, that you have to go back to the drawing board to create something new again. We need all three stages. There's no one positive stage or negative stage. You need to go through the stages of naivety, sophistication, and decadence. And we need to pass through all three. Excuse me. You can apply it to life as you can with art, as all things that apply to art apply to life. We cannot stay in any one stage for too long. It has its natural course. It is like Shiva's eternal dance of creation and destruction. He is considered to be naive in so many ways, and that's why he's also called Bholanath. But he's also the king of dance, the master of art. He's also the destroyer with his quick temper and Tandav Nritya. Then he's back to being the innocent mendicant. What information technology has done is it has increased the pace at which we move from one stage to the next. And that may be the kind of resistance we see in people from my generation, because now it can happen in 15 seconds, right? You tweet, you get retweeted, you get ignored, right? Maybe 15 seconds is an exaggeration, or maybe not, yeah? But sometimes it does seem like everyone is getting their 15 seconds of fame. 15 seconds of fame as opposed to 15 minutes of fame. Oh, that's way too much time. If it is 15 minutes now, you're a legend. It's like chewing gum. You take it in, you savor, draw the flavor, and then you spit out the dead piece of gum. The solution is to embrace the decadence that computer technology may have brought in. We can't blame the technology alone. I think we may have to take note of the fact that the art of resistance to work or to art has always existed. Technology is just one more contender in that. And we must wake up to a new world where technology is a given circumstance in our lives. What we do next may be the most important thing in the history of mankind. And I think something like this pixel art that we've seen here, I think it's so positive to see this. Now, when I asked the artist how long did it take for him to match those colors, now for somebody, maybe I'm too old or maybe I'm growing senile, I could never figure out the Rubik's Cube. I've never been able to solve that. And here he's got the right colors and the right positions and everything. Now, that is truly a work of art, right? It's not an kind of art that I'm familiar with from, when I was growing up, but it is. It definitely is. So, AI can only come up with a Van Gogh if the AI knows the brush work of Van Gogh. It cannot come up with a Van Gogh if there is no Van Gogh to begin with. Naivety does not belong to AI or any other form of technology. It needs the sophistication to begin with. So the starting point of artificial intelligence is sophistication. It's not naivety. Only a human being has the privilege of starting from a blank slate or an empty space. A shunya. So while we complain about the destruction of the old order with the advent of technology, we must also celebrate the opportunities it throws up. Opportunities for us to think again, to create again, and discover our time and place all over again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mahesh sir, for sharing your informative insights. It truly sets the tone for the upcoming discussions. Now, as we come to the close of this inaugural event, I request you all to move to the second floor for the book fair inauguration, followed by a tea break. Our next panel discussion starts at 11:15, so I request you all to please reassemble here within that time. Please have a tea break.
ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯ ಅಕಾಡೆಮಿ ಕೇಂದ್ರ ಬೆಂಗಳೂರು, JVN ಕುಂದಾಪುರ, ಸುರಭಿ ಬುಕ್ ಹೌಸ್, ನಮ್ಮ ಭೂಮಿ, ಅಲಂಕೃತ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಕ್ಸ್, ಕ್ರಾಫ್ಟ್ ಮಂತ್ರ, ವನಸುಮ ಟ್ರಸ್ಟ್, ಮಣಿಪಾಲ್ ರೂರಲ್ಸ್. ಹ್ಯಾಪಿ ಶಾಪಿಂಗ್.